That's what I'm going to do.
Are you? You will be doing that alone. I'm just going to drink my tea and be the mature one here. For once. Yeah? That's what you're going to do?
That's what I'm going to do.
All right, I think that's going to work out really well for you.
I think it did.
No. Really?
It's your 80s furniture.
Don't make fun of me.
Got a throwback.
Mm-hmm.
What would?
Just do your clap, even if you have to gangster clap. Just do your clap.
And all that.
Yeah, that's what we gotta do. Oh, man. Well, there it is.
There it is.
There you have that.
You're listening to Articulate with your hosts, Kevin Kramer and Sean Gillespie, your go-to guys for art tips, techniques, and general artist ramblings. Presented by drawingandcoloring.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Articulate, the show where we talk about everything art and answer your questions about art.
Sometimes. If you ever ask any questions, we'll answer them.
When we get them.
We'll try to. We'll Google them for you.
We'll take care of them. So what are we talking about today? I am Kevin.
Oh, yep, it's Kevin, and I'm Sean.
Always.
All right.
So what are we talking about?
Today, we're actually going to be talking about who is the artist.
Who's the artist?
Is it the person that thinks of the idea, or the person who enacts or implements the idea?
Implements the idea.
Yeah. Now, this is a good topic. Now, I feel like this topic isn't so much an issue in painting and drawing as often as it is with film. Now, with film, who is the artist is like a big question. Sometimes it's the producer, sometimes it's the director, sometimes it's the writer, sometimes it's all of the above.
I mean, it's a collaboration for sure, and I think film is kind of known as that, but the director usually gets a lot more credit for most of it.
Well, definitely. But there are definitely some times like where in film it kind of works itself out because you have like a director who will work with a certain producer, and then that producer will go on and make another film by themselves, and that film looks just like the last one they did, but the director's new film doesn't look anything like it, and you're like, oh, okay, that aesthetic must have come from the producer. Mm-hmm. Or he took the,
right.
The guy, cinematographer with him, or her,
right.
or her.
The guy that gives that whole view, the aesthetic.
Yeah. So that comes up, but that definitely happens in art too. You have like
I feel that it happens more in the bigger artists. Because when you're small, you don't have the money to hire assistants and all those things.
And as you get bigger and people want you to start cranking it out, then you start, and I feel like I know what documentary you're thinking of here.
Do you?
By chance, are you thinking of Exit Through the Gift Shop?
Perhaps you're right.
Oh, by Jove, I've got it! Yes. Because that's totally what that guy does. He starts, basically he starts mass producing art. And gets a bunch of interns and assistants, and they start just photoshopping it, and he just runs by, scriggling paint on it,
right?
And you're just like, wait a second, something has gone wrong in the system.
Exactly.
Even as you're watching it, you're like, something is amiss here. This is not where this.
If you haven't seen that movie, it's basically
go watch it now. Turn this off and go watch it. No.
It's basically mocking what is art.
Well.
Or
it's
who
not
is the artist?
Mocking. It's bringing up the question of what is art, and
what is art, and who is the artist,
and whether or not art is whether somebody is an artist because they create a following and they create a movement, or whether they're just manufactured. Like basically, like can you manufacture
great art,
or are you, you know what I mean, or are you an artist, and then that can't help it. It's interesting. It brings up a lot of good questions, that documentary.
It really does.
But what it makes me think of too is going a little further back, because this was a problem before Banksy and that guy whose name escapes me, thank goodness.
Mr. Brainwash,
yeah, before Banksy and Mr. Brainwash. But going further back with Warhol, he actually towards the end of his career had a guy who would he would drink green liquid and it would make him pee green. And he would pee on canvases, and Warhol would tell him where to pee. Need a little bit of urine right over here, please.
Interesting.
He didn't talk like that, Warhol.
Interesting that you brought that up. Is I recently saw, from South by Southwest, a video of Lady Gaga and her performance, where she had a woman who her art is to throw up paint, and she was singing. And she had her throwing up paint on her. Oh. Different colored paint.
Huh.
Which is completely disgusting.
Wow.
In my opinion.
Sounds kind of cool.
But
I'm not into that. I wouldn't want it to happen on me, but, on her for sure. I'll watch that. I'll watch that clip.
I don't know.
Yeah. But no, yeah. So, yeah, that, might have to have a podcast on body function art one day.
That is completely a whole nother thing. But it's like, is that art?
Hey, man, I'm not even gonna stick I'm not even gonna poke that bear. I don't even know. I have no idea if that's art.
I mean, that's
I haven't seen the clip. But,
it's pretty.
But yeah, but it's a performance.
It's performance art for sure, but it's like, why?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It sounds colorful. It sounds like it's got a lot of color and it evokes an emotional reaction.
Clearly, I think. So, if you're going just for shock value, I guess.
But. Well, and that's a problem. That's art, and that really started, or not started, but that's been an issue for all. But with the Da movement, you had a lot of they're just trying to shock you. And then, which that was a very artistic movement. It was still interesting. But then out of that, I was at a museum a few years ago, and there was just in neon, actually it wasn't even neon, it was just the bulbs, and it just said, fuck, on this thing. And you're just like, well, all right,
there it is.
I can see you put a lot of effort into this, and Lord, that's a nice work of art. It's in a museum, and it's like... Okay, is that, is that art? You made a sign that said, fuck, you're like a 5-year-old. You're like, I'll put the light bulbs and they say fuck, You might used to do that with a little, I don't Etch-a-Sketch or with a little glowworm thing. What is that thing? I don't know, whatever, the glow thing.
That kind of art has, a certain appeal, but we're getting off
it's not my thing.
We're getting
but
off
anyway,
topic.
But the point is so what we're talking about, and one of the things, too, I think of...
Now, if he actually had...
Somebody else put
the lights together... So he was if he had to ship that off to have the bulbs made perfectly or some kind of way.
What I would say, because as a muralist, you get a lot of Diego Rivera. Yeah, so I've been a muralist for 15 years, right? And painting murals is hard. It is backbreaking and hard. And I don't think that there's a mural that goes by that I'm not up on a ladder painting in some awkward way, my neck hurting, and I'm reaching, that I'm like, how did Diego Rivera do this? Because that is not a dude who takes care of himself. He is not in shape. How did he pull this off? Right. And then I start thinking about, he definitely had assistants. Right. And what happens a lot of times with the assistants is the assistants all go in and they lay down all the ground color, and then the artist comes in afterwards and put in all the details and the finishing touches. And then it's like, it's his idea and he's doing the finishing touches, but he didn't do all the work.
Right.
So then you're like, but nobody knows their names. I mean, he's definitely the artist.
Right. So I think the question is is you outsourcing the busy work, you not being the artist
So
anymore?
My point was, if anybody can do the tasks that you're outsourcing, then you're still the artist. That's going to be my opinion. That's like one man's opinion here,
is that what
dude.
That is?
but yeah. So I feel like if anyone can do that, and you could do it yourself, and you're just doing the busy work part of it, then you're still the artist. Well, I guess it's your idea and you're finishing up the end product.
I guess what you could argue there is the main aesthetic that you provide is being put on top of that other work.
Right.
So this could just be a blank blue square, but then what you do is you put these little squiggles on it that only you are known for.
Well, right.
And then now you're the artist.
But if they're painting just a blank blue square, anybody can do that. You
Right.
know? Right. But if their work affects your work, then that becomes the other thing. Like, oh, well, this person paints a blue square different than everybody else. And then
Right.
it's like, okay, well, their magic only happens when he works with this one person. Then it becomes like a mutual, or you're
Right.
both the artist because you're both creating
But
that unique aesthetic.
Technically,
But
doesn't everyone paint their own blue square?
I don't know. That's the question.
And there's another artist that I love a lot. He's Chuck Close.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of
Yeah.
physical issues,
Actually,
strokes and
yeah.
things like that. He does dyed paper,
Right.
which he doesn't do. He doesn't dye the paper,
Right.
but he knows what colors he needs,
Right.
and he gets people to make them,
Yeah.
and then he directs them to where they need to go.
Yeah, I actually worked in Colorado College with one of his assistants. He was a really interesting guy, yeah.
So it's like, I guess the question could be is, would that piece exist without this person? And if the answer is no, then he was the artist.
Well, yeah, but in that case, that piece wouldn't exist without either of the people. You know what I mean?
True.
Like, he still has to have two people, but
True.
it's like one of them is expendable.
Right.
For lack of a
Who
better
is the
word.
seed?
Who's the expendable
Who's
one?
the
That's the
seed
thing.
of
Yeah,
that
and that's what I'm saying as far as like if the work itself is different based on
Right.
that's the
Based on that one
I
person.
feel like I already said that, Kevin, but you said it better. It was more articulate. I like that better.
All right.
But so speaking of Chucks,
Chucks?
because I was thinking of another Chuck
Oh?
earlier, who is Chuck Jones, another favorite artist of mine. A lot of people are like, Chuck Jones? Who's Chuck Jones?
I don't know.
Ever heard of Looney Tunes, my friend?
Maybe.
Yeah, he created Roadrunner and
Okay.
Wile E. Coyote, a lot of other our favorite characters, but he really created that Looney Tunes aesthetic, like what we think of when we think of Looney Tunes. You know,
Right.
obviously Bob Clampett did Daffy Duck, and you also have Freeling he did Samity Sam and all that, and so you have all these other artists working, but that when you think of the Looney Tunes and when you watch those Tom and Jerry's and you're like, these look like Looney Tunes. That's
Right.
because that's Chuck Jones doing those Tom and Jerry's, which is why that aesthetic carried
Interesting.
over. And that's
Right.
how you know that that's his aesthetic,
Right.
Because it carries over into a different medium. And also he always worked with Ken Harris and Michael Matisse. So it's like these three guys, they're the trifecta. And
Right.
yeah, and old Ken Harris,
That's
like
their
you can see
design.
his style in Chuck Jones's work. Right?
I have to watch these
Whoop,
again.
whoop. So yeah, so if you watch any of the old Looney Tunes and pay attention to the credits, you'll see Ken Harris's name popping up all over the place, especially anyone that has dogs in it. He was kind of the go-to dog artist.
Oh.
He was. He's amazing at dogs.
Dog
Just
man.
giving dogs like just character and personality. Or the one like with the two dogs and one's tough and the other one's like, hey Spot, you know
Oh,
that
yeah,
guy.
he's, like, bouncing around.
Right, bouncing around. Ken Harris, right, and the one with a little cat that's on the dog's back and he loves the
Oh,
cat
yeah,
and he's
yeah.
trying to protect it. Ken Harris. But also, if you notice and you're watching the Grinch cartoon around Christmas and you're like, wait a second, that dog looks strikingly familiar. It's because that's Ken Harris again, right?
Right.
So his style within the bigger piece of art
Right.
goes through.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel like the artist is. So as far as the dog, you can even break it apart. Like, oh, well, Ken Harris is the artist of the dogs, but
Right.
Chuck Jones is the artist of the story and the artist of, you know what I mean?
So it's it's that aesthetic that you can't
it's,
copy.
Right. It's the part that nobody else can reproduce that is the art. Because if somebody else can reproduce it, then...
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously
again,
you can
that
get
kinda
into
reminds me
fake
of
paintings and all that.
That kind of reminds me of how animation works. I mean, you have one person who creates that master cell,
Right.
and you have all the other people that
Filler.
fill in
Yeah.
those other things.
Yeah.
They're like the key.
Yeah,
key
every
cell?
eight cells, the
Right.
artist you have the director usually will go in and draw
Right.
a key pose or
Exactly.
key frame, and then they'll have
Keyframe,
other
yes.
artists who just fill in the filler.
Right.
And that's actually where the word keyframe comes from.
Right. Yeah. And then they tween or fill in the middle.
Tween, yeah.
So-
yeah. I think that's a newer term. I don't know if they called it that back in
Maybe.
the day. But either way, yeah, it's called tweening now. So
But yeah, it's like that one key frame was designed by the key artist, the master artist, and then everyone else has to copy it.
oh yeah, man, I freaking love Looney Tunes. I hate that the rednecks have ruined Looney Tunes. I'll go and I see Tweety Bird on mud flaps, and I'm like, no, you're ruining Looney Tunes. Those are works of art. What are you doing? I don't know why I talk like that guy. No. Who is that guy? Gary Shanley or something? No, it's not good. Who's that guy? That's somebody.
I don't know.
Somebody talks like that. No, stop it. That's not right. That guy. He said, that's not right. That guy. He's a comedian. That's who he is.
Not right.
He talks like that. It's really annoying when he does it, so I'm going to stop.
That guy.
Yeah. So anyway, so what have we decided here? The person whose aesthetic carries over, and the person responsible for giving that artwork its unique look is the artist.
Right.
Okay.
So
if that person goes on and works with other people, and you still have that unique aesthetic going through,
see it come through.
We see them as the artist. So it's really like as a single piece of art, it's hard to tell sometimes who the artist is. Sometimes you need 2 or 3 to tell who the artist is. They have to prove themselves over time.
Right, and another cartoon is Ren and Stimpy cartoons.
Yeah.
I've seen that aesthetic.
Oh, it's been copied and like SpongeBob. SpongeBob. SpongeBob has a very similar like look where it's kind of like they're kind of gross looking.
Yeah, it gets into that gritty.
Yeah, it's a gritty.
Whenever they do close-ups,
right? And you're like, oh man, why are these cartoons hideous? Yeah.
So it's like that same aesthetic.
Yeah, I remember being a kid and watching Ren and Stimpy and being like, I don't like this. This is not Looney Tunes. Why are these people hideous? Yeah, but
so I think that is the idea, or is it the person who implements it? I think we both agreed that it is the person's aesthetic.
Yeah, we've agreed. Yeah, that it's whichever one carries over. If you're an idea man, and then well, good for you. But if the work of art carries over, and the other person just needs good ideas, and they keep on after you, then yeah. So if you're working with somebody, make sure try to work by yourself. Yeah. See how that goes for you, or work with somebody else for a little while, and you'll begin to see a style emerge, and then you'll all find out. So there we go.
I think we've sufficiently
we've beaten this horse.
Answered that one.
I don't know what is that a saying? I don't know.
Beat the horse?
Beating I think it's a dead horse.
You beat the dead horse.
Why would they do that?
Because they just can't stop.
So subscribe to this.
Yes.
Magic.
If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button right over there. If you're listening to this on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow us.
Man, they can subscribe on Stitcher too?
Everywhere.
Man, it's a magical wonderland.
Across the board.
Woo! Yeah, they'll have no reason not to subscribe then. No. And to comment.
Yeah.
Send us some comments, questions, or concerns, and we'll address them.
Right in the comments below, and we will get back to you and talk about what you want to see.
Sometimes.
Or what you want to talk about.
Maybe. And I can't promise that.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.
Take care.
You've been listening to Articulate with Kevin and Sean. Subscribe on iTunes or check them out on drawingandcoloring.com. Always reminding you to keep it simple.